Hey guys, tonight we're going to set sail into a world where the waves never stop. The maps lie more than your last group project partner, and the sky is your only guide. You're about to step aboard an ancient wooden ship, and trust me, by the end of this, you're going to be questioning every romantic painting of seafarers you've ever seen. Imagine waking up to the groaning of wood, the stink of salt and sweat, and the unsettling realization that there's nothing but water in every direction. Yeah, you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. I love seeing how far the sleepy crew reaches. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step onto the dock just as the sun starts to rise, casting long shadows on the thick ropes that bind your ship to the world you know. The boat is old, older than your grandfather's tall tales, and smells like wet timber and dried fish. Creaks like it already knows it doesn't want to do this again. The captain gives you a nod. He's got 2 teeth and 0 patience, and you climb aboard with a mix of curiosity and dread. The air is heavy with sea mist and the occasional gull dropping, both of which hit your face without warning. Below deck, the space is tighter than a poorly planned group selfie. Hammocks swing lazily above barrels of salted meat, pickled vegetables, and things you pray you'll never have to identify by taste. As the sails rise, you hear the fabric snap in the wind. It's both majestic and mildly terrifying. The wind takes hold, and the ship begins to drift away from the dock, slowly at first, then with purpose. There's no going back. The last thing you see is your little village shrinking behind you. A few houses, a dog barking, and someone who may or may not have owed you money. The journey begins with excitement. For the first few hours, you're all energy, hauling ropes, pretending to know what port and starboard mean, and trying not to slip on the wet deck. You watch the shoreline disappear into haze. There's a kind of magic in it. You're going somewhere, though no one seems exactly sure where. Night falls faster than you expect. The sea doesn't fade gently into dusk. It slams you into darkness like someone pulled a curtain on the sky. And unlike land, there are no flickering lanterns in nearby windows, no warm glow from kitchen fires. Just black, deep, endless black. The stars above are clearer than anything you've ever seen. Sharp, unblinking, and disturbingly still. You lie back on the deck for a second to take it in. The stars are the only constant now. You've heard sailors call them the old compass. But let's be real, you don't know the North Star from a shiny speck of bird droppings. It's all guesswork unless you're the navigator, and even he squints a little too long at the sky like he's winging it. A seagull squawks loudly near your ear and startles you upright. Then you realize there shouldn't be seagulls out here anymore. You're already too far from shore. And just like that, the reality sinks in. You are entirely surrounded by water, with no land in sight and no idea how long it'll stay that way. Below deck, your sleeping spot is a hammock that somehow manages to feel like both a wet towel and a swinging trap. You try to sleep, but every movement of the ship feels like a personal insult. Every creak makes you wonder if the whole thing's gonna fall apart plank by plank. Your neighbor in the next hammock snores like a drowning walrus. You put a cloth over your face and tell yourself this is what adventure feels like. Historians still argue whether ancient sailors feared the sea or revered it. Probably both. The Greeks believed in angry gods, the Vikings in sea serpents, and you're starting to think that log floating nearby looked a little too self-aware. Fringe records even mention sailors who swore the horizon blinked at them. No one believed them, obviously. You might be starting to. You wake up groggy the next morning to a bucket of seawater in your face. "Rise and row," someone bellows. "Wait, row?" Apparently, the wind died in the night. Time to grab an oar. Your arms ache before you even start. The hours drag on. The ship moves like it's stuck in molasses. The sun beats down, unfiltered and merciless. You thought the sea breeze would help, but it just makes the salt stick harder to your skin. You lick your lips and instantly regret it. They taste like a barrel rim. Midday brings a moment of calm. Someone spots a pod of dolphins off the port side. You lean over, hoping for a glimpse, and almost fall in. The sea below looks calm but bottomless. It's the kind of calm that unnerves you, like something big is watching from beneath. As you stare into the blue, you realize the ocean isn't just a setting, it's a character. It has moods, it groans, it breathes, it grumbles when it's bored and throws tantrums when you least expect it. And you're just a speck on its back. You try to find peace in the rhythm of the waves, the way the ship rocks predictably, until it doesn't. Out of nowhere, the wind picks up again, and the ship lurches forward like it's chasing something. You brace yourself and glance toward the captain. He's smiling, which should be comforting, but it's not. Dinner is salted fish and ship's biscuit, which is basically a flavorless brick. You bite down and hear a crunch, probably a weevil. Protein, you tell yourself. You chew slowly, letting the blandness spread across your tongue. There's no escape. This is your life now. You finish your meal as the sun sets again. This time, you don't feel awe, just quiet surrender. The ocean stretches endlessly, and you, tiny, tired, and sunburnt, are at its mercy. The second day at sea doesn't begin with a sunrise. It begins with someone yelling about spilled tar. You drag yourself from your hammock with the grace of a soggy sack of grain and promptly stub your toe on a barrel. Welcome to another glorious morning on the open water. You climb above deck and squint against the glare. The sun is already burning off the morning mist, and there's that same endless blue horizon. No birds, no sails in the distance, just sky and water and more water. And now you understand the true terror of ancient navigation. The compass hasn't been invented yet, and your ship's direction is mostly determined by vibes and hope. The navigator stands at the front of the ship with a polished wooden instrument called a gnomon, basically a stick and a lot of faith in the sun's schedule. You try to ask him how it works, and he just shrugs. The sky speaks, he says cryptically, then wanders off to argue with the captain about clouds. You start hearing talk of stars, Orion, Polaris, the Southern Cross. You nod along like you know what any of that means. At night, some sailors sleep while others keep watch, using star positions and sea swells to steer. No lights, no radar, not even a decent torch. Just eyes, memory, and the occasional lucky guess. Historians still argue whether early sailors from the Mediterranean had reliable ways of estimating longitude. Most agree they didn't, which means east-west voyages were basically educated stabs in the dark. Latitude was easier, thanks to the sun's height at noon, but that's assuming your sky wasn't covered in clouds, which it usually was. You're handed a scrap of parchment, today's chart. More of a painting, honestly. A few vague island shapes, some sea monsters drawn for fun, you hope, and lines that may represent wind directions or spilled ink. The captain mutters something about the stars shifting and tides changing, then laughs as if he knows anything for certain. You find yourself gravitating to the stern, where the helmsman lazily rotates the tiller. His fingers are permanently calloused and stained with salt. He whistles tunelessly and tells you, if the sea wants you to get there, you will. Comforting. By midday, the wind shifts again. Sails are lowered, then raised differently, ropes pulled, commands shouted. You watch in amazement as it all happens with chaotic coordination, like an argument set to music. You try to help by tugging a rope and almost get flung across the deck. You're told to just hold that knot and don't touch anything else. Your stomach grumbles. Lunch is exactly the same as dinner yesterday, which was the same as breakfast today. Biscuit, fish, maybe some dried lentils if someone remembered to soak them last night. The water barrels are starting to taste like the inside of an old nail. You sip cautiously and try not to breathe through your nose. One sailor swears he once sailed with a crew that could navigate by the color of the waves. Another insists that watching the birds gives away the nearest coastline, though no one's seen a bird in over 36 hours. You begin to wonder if you've entered some sort of suspended reality, a watery loop where the rules of logic stretch thinner with every passing hour. In the distance, a strange pattern appears in the clouds. The captain stares silently for several minutes before ordering a slight turn south. No explanation, just instinct and centuries-old stories passed from one sunburnt sailor to the next. You spend the afternoon coiling ropes, which sounds easy until you realize they're heavier than a sack of bricks and smell like wet fur. Every part of the ship is covered in a slick film of salt, grit, and something vaguely organic you try not to think about. A sudden splash behind the boat catches everyone's attention. You rush to the railing and catch a glimpse of something large dipping below the surface. Maybe a whale, maybe a very confused log. The crew cheers. "Good omen," someone says. You nod, though you have no idea why. Later, as the sky darkens, the stars blink into view again. The sailor next to you points at one cluster and calls it the sailor's shoulder. You ask if it's real. He shrugs. "My dad used to say it's where the lost winds live." You decide that's poetic enough to believe. Sleep comes slowly. Your hammock sways in rhythm with the ship, and your back already misses the stiffness of dry ground. You close your eyes and try to ignore the creaks, snores, and distant splash that probably wasn't a shark. Probably, somewhere out there, ancient Polynesians were once navigating entire oceans using only the stars, the feel of waves against their hulls, and the flight paths of birds. You wonder how many generations it took to pass that kind of knowledge down, and how much of it was lost every time a storm swept a boat off course. You drift into half-sleep, your mind echoing with stories about sea monsters, sunken islands, and a sailor who swore he saw a city beneath the waves once. You tell yourself it was just dehydration talking. Just before dawn, a low chant echoes softly across the deck. The old sailor by the mast hums an ancient tune about guiding winds and ancestral stars. You listen, not quite awake, and for a moment, you feel the rhythm of the sea shift beneath you. You dawn. You don't know where you are anymore, and that oddly feels okay. The third day begins not with sun or song, but with the unmistakable crunch of a weevil under your teeth. That's breakfast, another round of rock-hard biscuits. This one has texture. You spit discreetly over the side of the ship and swear you'll never eat bread again. If you ever see proper bread again. There's no point complaining. Everyone else is chewing the same regret. You lock eyes with a shipmate who gives a resigned nod. Misery, it seems, is a bonding agent stronger than pitch and tar. You pull out a small wooden bowl and dip it into the shared stew pot. It's a watery blend of dried peas, maybe some salted pork scraps if you're lucky, and the vague essence of something that once lived. The smell is not terrible, which, by ship standards, is a 5-star review. You slurp quietly while watching the sea roll. Your spoon clinks gently as the ship rocks, and you try not to think too hard about how many people's hands have stirred that pot, or what those hands last touched. By now, the daily rhythms have formed. Morning meals, rope duty, sail inspection, general existential dread. Afternoon naps in the sun if the captain isn't looking. A night of anxious stargazing. Repeat. It's peaceful in the way that makes you question whether peace is just boredom you've learned to tolerate. But the food. Let's get back to the food. Ancient sailors had no refrigeration. Instead, you've got salted fish so dry it could be used as a roofing tile. Sailors often soaked it for hours to make it chewable again. But honestly, you've started wondering if your jaw is just getting stronger. One sailor tells you of a ship where the crew survived for a week on boiled leather and candle wax. You believe him instantly. Another guy swears the Romans used fermented fish sauce, garum, as a daily condiment. And you know what? After today's meal, you'd take that gamble. Your water ration is a pint per day doled out carefully. They store it in barrels that were probably once used for wine or oil. You can taste both, faintly, behind the dominant notes of must and mildew. Some barrels go off. And when that happens, you try to pretend that tangy bite isn't mold. A sailor pours a bit into his mouth, grimaces, then mutters something about vintage. Fringe tidbits from logs tell us that some crews tried to mix vinegar into the water to keep it fresher. Didn't always work, but at least it masked the flavor. You try it once. It burns going down. You do not try it again. Then comes the bread, or rather, the biscuit. Hardtack, twice baked to near indestructibility. Can survive storms, rats, and apparently the end of hope. You knock one against the railing and it chips the wood. Impressive. A trick among seasoned sailors is to tap the biscuit lightly before biting. Why? Because sometimes it houses guests. Weevils. Small, protein-packed bugs that burrow in during storage and live happily inside your rations. If they crawl out, you flick them away. If they don't, you eat them. Extra crunch. You're not even phased anymore. Historians still argue whether the prevalence of foodborne illness on long voyages was due more to improper storage or contamination at sea. Spoiler alert, both. Everything is suspect when it's been in a wooden barrel under a sweaty deck for 3 months. Once, a rat scurries across the galley area. Instead of screaming, the cook just shrugs and says, "Better protein than biscuit." You laugh until you realize he's not joking. Rat stew is apparently a thing, especially when supplies run low. You suddenly develop a fondness for the weevil bread. You try fishing, cast a line overboard and hope for the best. After 2 hours, your bait is stolen by something fast, rude, and unseen. A sailor catches a silver fish and holds it up triumphantly, only to discover it's got a row of teeth that look suspiciously human. He throws it back with a curse and a prayer. Lunch is the same as breakfast and likely the same as dinner. You chew slowly, staring out at the flat horizon. You daydream about fruit, apples, oranges, even underripe bananas. You'd sell your hammock for a single grape. Someone mentions scurvy, and you suddenly remember what happens when people don't eat citrus. Your gums feel fine. For now, ancient sailors, particularly those in the age of exploration, eventually learned to pack dried lemon peels or preserved fruits when possible. Before that, entire crews would rot from the inside, teeth falling out, joints swelling, skin bruising at the slightest touch. You scratch your arm absently. Just a sunburn, probably. The cook, bless him, tries to keep things interesting. He once added dried seaweed to the stew. Tasted like regret, but at least it was different. Another time, he roasted fish skin and called it crisps. You pretended to enjoy it. He smiled for the first time in days. You find humor in the smallest moments. A crewman fashions a spoon from a broken comb. Another teaches you how to peel the mold off biscuit edges like it's a fine cheese. Survival isn't just about eating, it's about not going mad while doing it. At sunset, a rare treat. Someone opens a sealed pot of honey. It's crystallized, but golden and sweet. And for a fleeting second, you forget where you are. The taste of something pure, something untouched by salt and damp, lifts your spirits more than you thought possible. You get a single spoonful. You savor it like treasure. As the stars return and the sea cools, your stomach still growls, but your mind begins to settle. You didn't die of food poisoning today. That's progress. You lie back against a crate, mouth dry, biscuit crumbs on your shirt, and whisper into the night, "I miss vegetables." The ocean does not reply. You've given up on the idea of ever being clean again. The fourth day dawns with a sour wind and the unmistakable scent of 40 unwashed men sharing one floating wooden box. You wake up already sticky. Your clothes have clung to your skin like wet seaweed, and no part of your body feels dry, or fresh, or remotely dignified. You stagger to the deck, passing a sailor who's attempting to scrub his shirt using seawater and a handful of sand. It looks like it's doing more harm than good, but he hums like it's a spa treatment. You consider doing the same, but then remember you don't have a spare shirt. No one does. Bathing on this ship is optional. Not frowned upon, just logistically impossible. There's no fresh water to waste. Every drop goes to drinking or cooking, which means your only bath is a bucket splash with salty seawater and maybe a cloth scrub if you're feeling fancy. And the salt just dries sticky anyway, leaving your skin itchy and tight. You catch your reflection in a dull piece of bronze and barely recognize yourself. Hair crusted, nose slightly sunburned, and a new constellation of freckles? Or are those just food stains? The ship itself doesn't smell great either. The wood has absorbed generations of sweat, fish guts, mildew, and general suffering. Below deck smells like pickled regret and wet leather. Above deck isn't much better, thanks to spilled tar, rotting rope, and the communal latrine bucket. That bucket has its own zip code by now. Historians still debate whether ancient ships truly had any sort of hygiene routine. Some evidence suggests the Greeks and Egyptians may have tried to clean surfaces with oil or vinegar, but most ships, especially merchant vessels and pirate ships, likely just stank from keel to mast. The latrine situation? Not ideal. There's no bathroom. Just a plank with a hole at the back of the ship and a strong sense of balance required. You're expected to go quietly, discreetly, and without falling overboard. You have not yet mastered this, and every attempt feels like playing a very high-stakes game of don't die doing number 2. Your armpits have taken on the aroma of pickled onions. Your boots are growing what you swear is a tiny ecosystem. One sailor, with a twinkle in his eye, names the mold colony in his left shoe Gerald. Gerald is thriving. You pass a group scrubbing the deck with seawater and thick bristled brushes. Not to clean it, just to keep the rot from spreading. If the wood softens too much, the whole ship could split during a storm. So the cleaning is less about hygiene and more about not sinking. You find yourself oddly adapting to the stink. It becomes part of the background, like the creaking ropes, the flapping sails, and the occasional swear word carried by the wind. You stop flinching every time someone lifts their arms or removes their boots. That's just life. The cook mutters, tossing a moldy onion overboard. You'd protest, but your mouth is full of something pretending to be stew. Every bite is a gamble, soft, crunchy, moving. You don't ask questions. You just chew. Someone offers you a drink from a shared flask, and you take it even though it burns like regret. It helps wash down the taste, and for a second, you almost feel warm. Not safe, but warm. A sailor nearby starts laughing about how someone traded a gold ring for a pair of dry socks last week. Not 4, not the whole crate, just 3, and now everything's changed. The captain says it was rats. Nobody believes that. Not even the guy who said, "Yeah, probably rats." You've never seen a rat delicately peel an orange and leave behind neat, clean scraps. People are tense. That one quiet sailor, the one who used to play dice with you, he's not talking to anyone now. The cook is clutching his knife a little tighter. Even the navigator, normally calm, always tracing maps with his finger, snapped at someone this morning because they looked at his compass for too long. Historians still argue whether mutinies were truly common or just overblown in sailors' lore. But when you're stuck on a wooden box in the middle of nowhere with 30 tired, hungry men and a stolen orange, it suddenly doesn't seem so far-fetched. You catch wind of small conversations. "He's losing it," someone says about the captain. "We're off course," someone else whispers. You ask where to exactly. They don't answer. Just nod at the horizon like it means something. Doesn't. It's just more ocean. The captain starts making speeches. That's never a good sign. He stands near the mast and says things like, "Unity is strength," and "The sea tests the faithful." Feels less like leadership and more like desperation. You try staying out of it. Smile. Keep your head down. But you're not invisible. Everyone's watching everyone else now. Even over supper, if you can call it that, no one talks anymore. Just chewing. Watching. The tipping point isn't dramatic. It's weirdly small. One sailor, a wiry guy with a patchy beard and a nose that's clearly been broken more than once, gets caught taking a second helping of dried beans. Just a scoop, barely worth a slap on the wrist. But this time, it's different. The crew turns on him. First with words, then with fists. The cook tries to step in, swinging his ladle like a club. Chaos. The man is tied to the mast before you can even process what's happening. Accused of theft. "What next?" someone shouts. "He'll throw us overboard while we sleep." It's quiet after that. Too quiet. The man stays tied for a day and a night. No food, no water. Then someone cuts him loose silently in the morning. No one knows who. He disappears below deck and doesn't come out again. You wonder, is this it? Is mutiny just a slow unraveling? Not swords and shouting and "I am the captain now," but small betrayals and long silences? You're not sure which is worse. You try to sleep that night, but the creaks in the ship sound more like footsteps. You dream of oranges floating in water, bloated, bitter, unreachable. A quirky detail floats into your mind from something a sailor mentioned. On some voyages, captains used to nail a coin to the mast. It was meant as a promise, a symbol that they'd reach land and claim that reward. But if a mutiny happened, the coin was often the first thing pried off. A bad omen. You check your mast. No coin. just splinters. Another day, the sky turns a sickly shade of green before dusk. A storm might be coming, or maybe it /s just your nerves. You hear the navigator muttering again, something about wrong currents and compass spin. You ask if he's all right. He smiles without teeth and says, "You smell like oranges." What? You walk away. It's too quiet again. You hear someone hammering below deck. Not loudly, just slow, measured taps. Someone else whispers prayers under their breath, in a language you don't know. And then, singing. It's out of tune, off-key, but it's happening. One of the older crew members, probably delirious, starts singing a lullaby his mother used to hum. Others join in, some serious, some mocking. It's haunting. For a moment, you feel like you're back on land, somewhere safe. But then a wave hits the hull with a crack and the moment breaks. You realize you've been clutching your spoon like a weapon. You finally sleep, but lightly, dreamless, one eye open, because on this ship, anything can happen, and often does. You wake up with your mouth tasting like rust and your back stuck to a damp cot that smells faintly of mildew and regret. The sun isn't up yet, but the deck is already moving. Creaking under boots, whispering rope against wood, the low groan of a hull that's seen too much. You swing your legs over and nearly step in something wet. You don't look down. It's better that way. Your hand grazes the side of your neck, brushing against the scab that's been slow to heal. You've been nursing a small wound you got from slipping on the ladder 2 days ago. Nothing dramatic, just a scrape. But now it's puffy, angry, warm. The kind of warm that isn't just tropical air. A sailor once told you seawater heals everything. Salt cures, he said with the certainty of a man who's never opened a book. That's why the ocean's full of ghosts. It preserves them. You'd laughed. Now you're not so sure. So you do what he said. You go to the edge of the deck, scoop some seawater in a cracked tin cup, and splash it on the cut. It stings. Then it burns. And then it itches in a way that makes you want to peel your skin off with a spoon. The wound gets worse. By afternoon, it's oozing. Just a little. The ship's medic, which is generous because he used to be a butcher, gives you some moldy linen and says, "Tie it tight. Pray harder." He says it with a wink. That doesn't help. You're not the only one. Turns out, everyone's dealing with something. Blisters, rotting gums, a rash that's spreading like gossip. One poor guy has a foot so swollen he walks like a penguin. Another's missing 2 fingernails and doesn't remember losing them. Salt water doesn't heal. Festers. You try not to touch anything. But that's impossible on a ship. Everything is everyone's. The railings, the buckets, the shared ladle at mealtime. You wonder if the wooden spoon you're using has been in someone's infected mouth. Or foot, or worse. The cook gets a cut while slicing what may or may not be fish. He wraps it in a bit of cloth that was last used to mop the deck. 2 days later, he stops cooking. Just sits, rocking gently, smiling at the sky. When someone tries to shake him, he says, "The ocean's whispering. It says I'm clean now." No one asks him to explain. Historians still argue whether ancient mariners understood infection at all. Some say they thought pus was a sign of healing. Others claim sailors believed illness was caused by the alignment of stars. Whatever the truth, one thing's clear. If you got sick at sea, your best hope was to not get sicker. You wrap your hand again. The linen's stiff now, crusted. You pretend it smells like herbs. Doesn't. That night, while relieving yourself over the side, you see something in the water. A flicker. Not a shark. Not a dolphin. Something glowing? You blink. It's gone. But for a moment, the sea seemed to shimmer greenish blue, like a ghost was taking a swim. You remember the old sailor again. The sea preserves, he'd said. Bioluminescence, you tell yourself. A perfectly natural phenomenon. Tiny organisms lighting up when disturbed. Pretty, magical, harmless. But your brain, tired and twitchy, twists it into something else. Maybe it's the souls of the infected. Maybe the sea doesn't just swallow you. Maybe it lights you up, like a warning flare to the next unlucky soul who dangles a foot too close to the edge. You pull your foot back. The next morning, Two men argue over who gets to use the clean bandage, which, spoiler alert, is neither clean nor really a bandage. One threatens the other with a marlin spike. The captain intervenes, but his authority feels thinner now, like salt-dried leather, brittle, ready to snap. You sit alone, tracing circles on the deck with your toe, trying to remember what grass feels like under bare feet, trying not to look at your hand, which now smells like spoiled fruit. You overhear someone say that back in the day, Greek sailors believed seafoam could heal wounds. You consider bathing in it, but then you remember how many things pee in the sea. No thanks. A fringe belief you once laughed at now rings in your head. That sickness wasn't just a physical thing, it was punishment. For stealing, for lying, for looking at the wrong star at the wrong time. One sailor insists his rash started the night he killed a rat that looked at him funny. No one argues. You start to wonder what you did wrong. You start drinking less water. It's not intentional. It just tastes thicker now, like the barrel's growing something. One sailor swears he saw it move. You try sipping slowly, holding your breath while drinking. It helps, a little, but nothing helps the dreams. You dream of infection spreading like ink in water. You dream of your shipmates melting. You dream of your own hand whispering things to you. You wake up chewing your sleeve. The next day, someone finally throws the moldy linen overboard, calls it cursed. Everyone claps, like that's going to help. Doesn't. But weirdly, people feel better afterward, as if pretending something worked is the same as it actually working. Maybe that's the secret of sailor medicine. Hope disguised as superstition, wrapped in a bandage and dunked in salt water. You check your hand again. It's not worse, but it's not better. You learn to live with it, like everything else at sea. You /re not sure how long it /s been since you last saw land. Days blur together. The sun rises, it bakes you, it leaves. The moon replaces it like some bored night watchman. Time stops feeling like something measured by clocks and starts feeling more like something measured by how crusty your shirt is getting. Today, the wind dies. You think it /s no big deal. Just a lull. A break from the endless groaning sails and whipping ropes. But soon it becomes clear. This ISN /T a break. This is what sailors fear. The dead calm. The sails hang limp like forgotten laundry. The ocean goes glassy, eerily still. No waves, no birds, no noise, except the occasional creak of the ship adjusting to its own weight. You wait for a breeze. Nothing. You wait another hour. Nothing. You start sweating just from standing still. The heat doesn't /T feel like it /s coming from the sun anymore. It /s rising from the sea itself. Like you /re floating above a simmering pot. By the end of the day, tempers are tight as dried rope. Even footsteps seem louder, heavier. People stop talking unless they have to. You realize how much you relied on wind, not just for movement but for noise. The flap of canvas, the pull of ropes, the way it pushed stale air away from your nose. Now everything just hangs. You wipe sweat from your neck and notice that it /s thicker than usual. It doesn't /T evaporate. It just sits on your skin like a second, slightly salter layer. You lie awake that night, feeling the ship bob slightly but go nowhere. It /s like being in a dream where you /re running but never move. One sailor whispers about the /horse latitudes /. That mythical band of ocean near the equator where ships get stuck and men lose their minds. They used to throw horses overboard, he says, just to lighten the load and pray for wind. Historians still debate whether that /s true, but something about it sticks in your brain. You imagine tossing barrels, blankets, people, anything to summon the wind. You try to breathe deeply, but the air is thick and unmoving. It /s like inhaling soup. Someone pulls out a flute made from a hollowed bone, starts playing a tune. It /s wobbly and slow, like the song itself is melting. A few sailors hum along. Others cover their ears. You just stare out at the flat horizon, wondering if you /V entered some kind of sea-based purgatory. You dream again. This time, you /re walking on the surface of the sea. The sky is a lid. You knock on it, but no one answers. You backslash re surrounded by sails, but none of them belong to ships. They float like ghosts, flapping without wind. You wake up with your mouth open, as if you were screaming. No one backslash s moving much anymore. The backslash s too hot to argue. Too hot to pretend things are fine. Meals are quiet. Someone tries to fry salt pork on a piece of tin using just the sun. It actually works. Kind of. Water starts to run low. The barrels are in backslash T replenishing themselves. You hear whispers that one was tainted, that someone opened it and found a strange jelly growing on top. But they drank it anyway. The thirst is winning. You spend the next hour just thinking about fruit. Oranges, apples, even a half-rotten banana sounds divine. Then someone mentions the dreaded word. Scurvy. You scoff. That backslash s something pirates get in cartoons. But deep down, you wonder. Your gums feel tender, like overcooked noodles. And their backslash s this weird ache in your thighs that one backslash t go away. Scurvy starts quiet, one sailor says. Then your teeth start walking out one by one. You laugh, sort of, but you also start brushing your teeth with a bit of rope. Later that day, someone tries to spit overboard and misses. Not because they backslash re-clumsy, but because they backslash v gone dry. No saliva left. The sun is relentless. It stops being warm and becomes personal. Like it knows your name and is trying to break you. You try to distract yourself by tying knots in a piece of fraying cord, then untying them, then readying them. You backslash re-knot alone. A few others are doing the same. Silent, focused, like monks, except sweatier. A fringe belief from old maritime lore comes back to you. That if you whistle during a calm, you backslash ll summon the wind. But if you whistle wrong, you backslash ll summon a storm. You debate whistling. Then you hear someone do it. A long, slow, tuneless note. Everyone freezes. Nothing happens. They try again. Still nothing. Someone throws a boot at them. You go back to staring at the sea. The backslash s still flat. Still dead. But now something backslash s changed. The backslash s starting to feel hostile. Not dangerous. Just dismissive. Like the ocean has moved on from you. That night, a seabird appears. No one sees where it came from. It just lands on the mast like it backslash s always been there. You stare at it for hours. It doesn't backslash t move. Doesn't backslash t make a sound. Eventually, someone climbs up to scare it away. Maybe to eat it, maybe to ask it for weather tips. The bird flies off, but the wind comes back. Soft at first. Kiss. Then stronger. Then enough to stir the sails. Everyone cheers like kids. You cry. Just a little. Your tears evaporate almost instantly. The ship creaks to life again. Ropes tighten. The sails snap. You backslash re-moving. No more dead calm. Just dead tired. You backslash re-barely over the joy of moving again when the sea reminds you it still has tricks up its sleeve. The nets come up from a morning haul, except instead of your usual sad assortment of half-dead fish and some floating seaweed, today they're backslash something else. A blob. The backslash s not just slimy. The backslash s translucent, with pale green veins running through it, and it pulses like it backslash s thinking. Someone pokes it with a stick. It jiggles, then lies still again. A brave or deeply unwise sailor suggests it might be edible. Another swears it backslash s an omen. You backslash re not sure if it backslash s alive, or just a very confused jellyfish. Either way, you don backslash t want it near your food. The sea backslash s full of things that make no sense. The deeper the nets go, the stranger the creatures get. Things with no eyes. Fish with lanterns on their heads. Eels that hiss. You haul them up and toss them back like hot coals. Too weird to eat. Too ugly to look at. Some ancient sailors used to believe sea monsters patrolled the deep. Krakens, leviathans, things with names no one dared speak aloud. Historians still argue whether these legends stemmed from giant squid sightings or pure imagination. But when a tentacle the size of your arm brushes against the hull, you really stop caring about scholarly consensus. You remember something one of the old deckhands said early on. The ocean backslash s like a locked chest. Every now and then, something slips out. Today feels like one of those days. Later, the water around the ship turns an eerie shade of blue. Not just bright, glowing. Phosphorescent trails swirl every time you move. Even your hand, when dipped, comes out sparkling. Everyone /s too stunned to talk. Someone whispers that this is how the sea spirits mark their prey. Another says it /s just plankton. You choose to believe it /s plankton, mostly so you can sleep tonight. But then come the noises. They start small. Clicks, low hums, a dull thump against the hull every now and then. But the patterns get weirder, rhythmic, almost like language. No one mentions it aloud, because what if it is? One night, a sailor reports seeing something large, too large, shadowing the ship from below. The water was boiling, he says, shaking. I looked down, and the sea looked back. You tell yourself it /s the exhaustion talking. Still, you avoid looking too long over the edge. And then there are the flying fish. Yes, flying. They erupt from the waves like miniature silver missiles, gliding over the deck and slapping unsuspecting crew members in the face. One lands in your lap, flaps violently, then dies mid-flop. You try to thank it for its sacrifice as you toss it into the cooking pot. The cook barely blinks. They taste like disappointment, he mutters. By now, you /v developed a strange habit naming fish. You /re not the only one. When a peculiar long snout thing lands in the net, someone calls it Gerald and demands it be spared. Another crewman insists it /s a bad luck fish and throws it back with a solemn nod. You sigh. Gerald seemed chill. You /v also started noticing things that weren't /t there before. A barnacle that moves. A shadow in the water that doesn't /t match the waves. A reflection that blinks when you don /t. Maybe you /re hallucinating. Maybe everyone is. At one point, the cook insists that he saw a mermaid sunbathing on a chunk of driftwood. Not like the stories, he clarifies. More fish than lady. Bad teeth. Looked mean. You make a mental note never to fall overboard. But even the mundane stuff starts to feel weird. You catch a crab with 1 claw and 6 legs. A squid with 2 extra eyes. A starfish shaped like a heart. Nature, it seems, doesn't /t follow rules out here. Someone finds a bottle bobbing in the water, corked, sealed with wax. Inside, a rolled-up note, written in a language no one recognizes. You pass it around. Everyone takes a guess. Pirate code, ancient warning, grocery list. You never figure it out. You keep it anyway. Maybe it /ll make a good story later. If you survive. At night, things really go off the rails. Once the sun dips below the horizon, everything gets louder. The water sloshes with more attitude. Creatures call out from the dark. The stars spin above you like they re-drunk. And then one night, a fog rolls in. Thick, instant, like someone poured milk over the world. You can /tc 5 feet ahead. You hear something splash nearby. Then again, closer. You hold your breath. Then, with a sudden whoosh, a dolphin leaps straight over the bow and vanishes into the mist. The silence afterward is crushing. Someone says, that /s good luck. Someone else mutters, unless it wasn't /t a dolphin. You choose to laugh, but quietly. There /s a weird comfort in knowing the sea is older and stranger than you /all ever understand. It /s like being in a cathedral that /s always moving, always changing. And you /re just another blip in its memory. You curl up on a coil of rope, rocked by the waves, serenaded by the weirdness of the deep. You close your eyes and think about dry land, and hope Gerald made it home. Land. Sweet, grubby, loud, questionable land. After what feels like centuries at sea, the sight of a coastline, any coastline, makes your knees go soft. A /s not even a fancy port, just a crooked collection of wooden docks, leaning taverns, and one suspicious goat watching your shoal. Ship approach, but it's not moving. That alone feels like a miracle. You disembark with the grace of a newborn deer, your legs wobbling with every step. The cobblestones feel too still, too solid. Your brain hasn't caught up to the idea of not rocking yet, and every second feels like you might tip sideways into a crate of cabbages. Shore leave, though, now that's a concept sailors cling to like life rafts. You have no money. None. Your pay went into ship repairs, salted fish, and the emergency rum fund that the captain conveniently forgot to explain. But that doesn't stop you. Shore leave isn't about money. It's about illusions of joy, usually exchanged for fleas and hangovers. The first tavern smells like mold, smoke, and about 3 decades of spilled dreams. You step in and are immediately handed a drink. What is it? Doesn't matter. You sip it anyway. It's warm and somehow chewy. You don't ask questions. The music's off-key. The dancing's chaotic. A man in the corner is arm wrestling a chicken for reasons you'll never understand. You lose at dice to a 7-fingered woman who says her name is Captain Twice. You believe her, and then someone gives you a gift. It's a necklace made from fish bones and a single red bead. For protection, they whisper, before disappearing into the crowd like a drunken ghost. You're too tired to question your life choices. Later, in a dark alley, why are you always in a dark alley? You buy something from a guy who says it's guaranteed to cure barnacle foot. You don't even have barnacle foot, yet it smells like vinegar and betrayal. There's a kind of madness on land that the sea never prepared you for. People talk too fast. The ground doesn't sway. There's noise that isn't wind or waves. Bells, carts, cats fighting under balconies. It's overwhelming. You try to sleep at an inn, but the bed doesn't move. It's upsetting. You lie there, arms behind your head, listening to the silence of walls and roofs and people snoring nearby. It's somehow less comforting than the slap of water against wood. You realize land doesn't rock you to sleep. It just waits. So you wander back out. Night on shore is both better and worse than sea night. There's more light, more smells, spices, firewood, meat, horses. But there's also shouting, drunken sword fights, and one very angry lady yelling at a man for stealing her parrot. And of course, the fleas. You itch more than you did on the ship, which seems statistically impossible. You meet other sailors in the taverns, each with stories wilder than yours. One claims he sailed through a sea that glowed red. Another swears a mermaid tried to tax his boat. A third just sits in silence, staring into his drink like it might bite him. Historians still debate whether such accounts were exaggerated, fabricated, or the result of fermented eel brine ale. But in a place like this, everything feels half true. You catch yourself staring out at the harbor. Your ship is still there, sails tied up, looking less like freedom and more like home. You didn't think you'd feel that way about the cursed vessel that almost drowned you 6 times. But there it is, waiting, like it always does. People on land don't understand sailors. They think you're mad for risking everything just to vanish over the horizon. But here's the secret. They're the mad ones. They live surrounded by walls, clocks, and rules. You sleep under stars. You eat what you catch. You fight wind, water, and whatever the sea throws your way, and somehow you keep coming back for more. Someone offers you a job. Unload crates, paint fences, chase chickens. You say no. Your clothes smell like salt and mold. Your boots squish with each step. You've developed a habit of swaying while standing still. You talk to clouds now, and sometimes they answer. You're not made for land anymore. Your sea legs may be tired, your lungs full of damp air, and your pockets empty, but your heart still beats to the rhythm of waves. Before you board again, you collect 3 things from town. 1. A rough wool scarf stitched by a local widow with missing teeth and 0 sense of color coordination. 2. A new pair of gloves with exactly 1 missing finger. Discounted, of course. 3. A small tin whistle said to summon wind. You don't believe that last part, but you bring it anyway, just in case. Back on board, everything smells familiar. Wet rope, pine tar, human regret. You climb into your hammock and rock gently. The ship creaks like it's glad you're home, or annoyed. It's hard to tell with ships. You close your eyes and think about that parrot lady again. You never did find out if she got it back. Maps, the proud tools of any so-called explorer. You'd think they'd offer comfort. Solid proof that someone's been here before, drawn the lines, named the islands, figured out which reefs won't kill you. But out here, maps are lies in ink form. Your captain unfurls a cracked parchment across a barrel. It's faded, stained, and smells like old rum and despair. Landmasses float in vague suggestion, and half the place names have been scribbled over and rewritten. One corner has a doodle of a sea monster wearing a crown. No one knows who added that. Here be dragons, someone says, deadpan. It's always dragons, krakens, or cursed fog zones. Turns out, when the cartographer is drawing from hearsay, sailor tales, and maybe a hangover, accuracy goes right out the porthole. Whole islands have been marked where nothing exists. One bay looks promising until it turns out to be a volcano. And the straits that look easy to cross? Strong enough currents to tear your boat apart like wet parchment. Historians still debate whether medieval nautical charts were meant more for navigation or as psychological comfort, which is polite speak for they were mostly nonsense with a compass rose. But hey, you've got this map, and the captain believes in it, which means you're stuck believing in it too. You set sail for a place marked Golden Isles. There's a suspicious smudge next to it and a note in cramped handwriting. Avoid after dusk. Great. You arrive 5 days later to find rocks. Just rocks. No gold. No isles. Just pointy doom breaking the waves and screaming seagulls that seem like they're laughing at you. You scrape the hull, lose a small anchor, and nearly crush the cook when a crate of onions flies across deck. Nothing golden about it. Still, the captain insists you're close. Just a little off. That's map speak for we're lost. Your navigator tries to course correct using a sextant. It looks impressive, but mostly seems like he's squinting through a brass toilet paper roll and guessing. He mutters things like azimuth and declination, but based on the ship's current angle, he might as well be doing interpretive dance. One night, you drift near a coastline that isn't on the map at all. Uncharted. The captain whispers, like it's a ghost story. Everyone gets real quiet. Uncharted lands mean one of three things. 1. It's new and untouched, full of treasure, rare fruit, and maybe talking monkeys. 2. It's cursed, and everyone who landed there got turned into trees. 3. Someone charted it once, but it ate their boat. You drop anchor offshore. No one wants to go first. Eventually, the youngest crew member, barely older than a crate of hardtack, gets pushed into the rowboat with a torch and a nervous smile. He returns hours later, covered in mud and clutching what may or may not be a giant fruit bat. Did it talk? Someone asks. No, he says, but it winked. You never go back. Another time, you hit a fog bank so thick it eats sound. Your compass spins lazily like it's bored. The ship creaks in confusion, and the map says you're somewhere between Reef of Saints and Sea of Dreams. Neither is helpful when you can't see your own hands. You start spotting glowing fish below the waterline. They move in perfect patterns, left, right, swirl. Maybe it's natural. Maybe it's a message. One sailor insists they're trying to communicate. Another thinks it's a trap. The cook says, "Let's eat one." You do. It glows all the way down. You spend 2 days glowing too. Eventually, you make it out of the fog by accident. The wind changes. The sails lurch. And suddenly, boom, sunlight. Everyone cheers like you just escaped the underworld, which, in a way, you did. Later, someone suggests you draw the updated map. So you do. You add a few real islands, a made-up one just for fun, Isle of Screaming Crabs, and a small sketch of that fruit bat, wearing a captain's hat. Feels right. Of course, no one will believe it, just like you didn't believe the last guy's notes. That's the sailor's paradox. Everyone lies on maps, but everyone follows them anyway, because having a terrible map is still better than staring at an empty horizon and hoping. But sometimes, the maps get it right. You land at a crescent-shaped atoll just before sunset. It's exactly where the map said it would be. Palm trees sway. Clear water laps gently at the beach. You spot birds, crabs, and one turtle who seems oddly judgmental. You spend the night there. Cook makes a stew. You dry your socks on a stick. Someone plays a tin whistle. The stars blink above you like they're trying to wink back. Maybe this part was drawn from memory, not imagination. Maybe the mapmaker had been here. Maybe you mark your own path now, adding dots and lines that future sailors will follow. Maybe one day they'll curse you for sending them into a fog bank full of glowfish. Or maybe they'll find that tiny isle and meet your bat. Either way, you're a part of the lie now. A very convincing, very dangerous, oddly beautiful lie. You're supposed to be hardened by now. Salt in your blood, calluses on your palms. A squint that suggests you've stared into storms and laughed. But even the most seasoned sailor, especially the most seasoned sailor, knows that the sea has moods. And tonight, she's brooding. The wind dies without warning. One moment the sails are taut, the next they hang like heavy curtains. The ocean glassifies, still and eerie. You can hear your own breath, the creak of the mast, someone's cough from below deck. It's like the world has hit pause. And then, just as suddenly, the sky shifts. It starts with a low rumble. Not thunder, but something deeper, like the ocean itself clearing its throat. You look west. A line of dark clouds is stacking on the horizon like angry gods lining up for a meeting. Everyone's eyes follow yours. Storm. You've seen squalls before. Rain, wind, maybe a busted sail or two. But this one builds. A wall of sky, a curtain of water. Reef back. Someone whispers. It's sailor slang for storms that churn shallow waters into froth and death. You know what comes next? Reef teeth. Hidden stone jaws just beneath the surface, waiting for distracted ships like yours. You brace. Within minutes, the ship's groaning under the weight of the first winds. Sails whip and snap. Rain hits like pebbles flung from above. You can't hear orders, only feel them. Hands tugging, ropes thrown, the desperate dance of staying afloat. Lightning forks sideways across the sky. Not down, sideways, like it's pacing. The ocean rises under you like a living thing, not just waves, walls. You go up and up until the stars vanish, then down into a pit of dark water that makes your stomach drop like a stone. You're not steering, you're surviving. The compass spins, the rudder groans, and for a moment, the ship stalls, caught between two forces, suspended like a toy in the bath of a furious child. Historians still argue whether sailors of your era truly understood weather patterns, or just read the signs better than most. Birds flying inland, sudden silences, rings around the moon, but none of that helps now. This is just muscle and prayer. A wave hits broadside, barrels break loose, someone screams. You lose sight of the deck entirely, underwater for a split second before the ship rights itself like a wounded animal shaking off pain. You can't feel your hands anymore. They're gripping a rope that might not even be connected to anything. Then another flash. Not lightning. Fire? You look again. No, a phosphorescence. The sea glows. Where the storm churns, the water lights up with green-blue flickers. Tiny plankton, disturbed by the violence, putting on a show like it's some sick finale. The storm begins to pull away. Just like that, the wind lets go. The rain lightens. The ship stops trying to die. You sag where you're standing, soaking wet, muscles trembling. You've lost a few sails, some supplies, and maybe part of your soul. But you're still floating. Morning comes as if the sky wants to apologize. The sea is calm again, almost smug. One sailor finds a jellyfish in his boot. Another spots a distant landmass off the port bow. You check the maps. It's not there. Classic. You drift closer. Trees, sure. Sand, yes. But also smoke? Not fire. Cook smoke. Someone's already there. You anchor. Row ashore. A small tribe greets you, not with weapons, but with curiosity. They've seen ships before. They've seen worse storms. One elder points at your vessel and makes a swirling motion in the air. Big water, he says, in heavily accented sailor's Latin. Sky angry. Yeah, no kidding. They invite you to sit. You're offered grilled fish wrapped in leaves and a kind of fermented drink that tastes like spicy seawater but makes your cheeks warm and your shoulders relax. You trade. Some beads, a rusty compass, and that hat you stole from the goat 2 weeks ago. In return, they give you stories. Stories about the sea gods who pull the water tight to punish the impatient. About the fish that sing underwater, luring ships to the coral. About lights in the deep that mark doorways to other worlds. You laugh politely, but deep down, you remember the glowing plankton, the sideways lightning, the compass spinning in surrender. You decide not to call it superstition. That night, you sleep on land for the first time in weeks. Your back misses the swaying of the ship. Your ears ring in the absence of creaking wood and crashing waves. And as you drift off, a thought occurs. The ocean doesn't hate you. She just doesn't care. She's too big to hate, too old to notice. You're not even a bug on her back. You're a whisper, and yet, somehow, you're still here. Your boots hit the dock with a clumsy thud. The planks don't sway beneath you. It should be a relief, but your body disagrees. Your legs move like you're still on the ship, like the ground beneath you is secretly tilting. They call it sailor's land legs. But really, it's your brain refusing to believe the world has stopped shifting. Welcome home, whatever home means now. You squint at the harbor. It's familiar, but not quite the same. The colors seem duller. The air smells like damp rope, stale beer, and horses. Decidedly not the tang of salt and sea. A dog barks. A kid stares at you like you're a ghost. You might be. Your ship is docked behind you, creaking gently, as if it too is adjusting to being still. The sails are torn. One mast leans slightly. A gull has already claimed the bow as its personal toilet. You carry your sea chest, well, what's left of it. A cracked box with a single working latch, filled with damp clothes, salt-rusted tools, and a few trinkets that only make sense to you. A pebble from a distant island. A shark tooth. A hand-drawn map with a coffee stain that looks eerily like a skull. You pass a man in a fine coat. He gives you one glance and quickly moves his coin pouch to the other side. You don't blame him. You probably smell like boiled boots and regret. At a tavern, the barkeep gives you a nod, not friendly, not unfriendly. Just a nod that says, "Another one back from wherever." You sit. He pours. The ale tastes like warm bread. You forget how much you missed that. A woman nearby asks, "Where'd you sail from?" You open your mouth. Pause. How do you explain 3 months of waking up drenched, eating maggoty hardtack, avoiding pirates, dodging mutiny, navigating by stars, and watching a man get slapped by a flying fish? You settle for east. She nods. Rough waters. You glance at your hands. They're still stained from tar, rope, and that one ink squid incident. You nod. Yeah. The conversation ends there. She gets it, or she doesn't. Doesn't matter. Later, you try to sleep in a real bed. It's soft. Too soft. You shift, twist, flip the pillow. No use. You miss the hard hammock, the lull of waves, the drip of water hitting with like a slow metronome. Outside, it rains. You smile. Rain you understand. Historians still argue whether sailors were ever truly home, whether they belonged more to the sea than to land. There are records of men returning, then leaving again within days. Not for gold, not for glory, just for that feeling. You feel it now. Restlessness. The land is too quiet, too fixed. You try walking down the street, but every step feels heavy, like gravity works harder here. You glance back at the ship. The crew is still aboard, cleaning, fixing, singing badly. They'll sail again soon. You know it. You also know you'll be with them. But for now, there's this odd moment. The in-between. You take a walk near the edge of the port where the fog rolls in. The lanterns flicker. Somewhere, a bell rings, soft and slow. A warning or a welcome, you're not sure. You reach into your coat and pull out a stone from that island. The one with the glow-in-the-dark beach. Smooth, still warm somehow. You toss it into the sea. The splash is small, insignificant, but it echoes in your chest like a drum. The sea doesn't call. She doesn't beg. She just waits, and you know you'll answer again. Not because of duty, not for riches, but because you belong to her now. You always did. You were just pretending otherwise. So now, here you are, finally still. The ship is gone. The stars are fading behind your eyelids, and your breath begins to match the soft rhythm of an imaginary tide, pulling you slowly toward rest. You can almost feel the deck sway beneath you again, not violently, but gently, like a cradle. Each breath is the sound of a distant wave. Inhale, foam rushes up the shore. Exhale, it slides back into the sea. That creaking wood? That's just your pillow adjusting. The smell of salt? Only the memory of adventure fading into the quiet. There's no captain shouting, no storm clouds on the horizon, just a sky, dark and endless, with stars so still they seem frozen in time. You float among them now, no longer a sailor, not quite a dreamer, something softer, something at peace. Your body, once tense from wind and rope, is letting go. Fingers unclench, shoulders sink, jaw slackens. Even your mind, once racing with maps and knots and strange sea creatures, is slowing. Thoughts drift in and out like fog, until even they forget to stay. You're weightless now, no compass needed, no course to follow, just rest, sleep, and the quiet hum of an ancient ocean that rocked generations to sleep before you, and will continue long after. Good night, sailor. You've earned it.